glare from that light up there, are we? Yes, we are. I do see it. Started getting music through it. What if it was a, I don't know. It's off? Is it on now?
Probably look right for too fast.
Is it good now? Yeah. So it doesn't hit any of the buttons. All right, we need to just go this way. Yeah. Okay. Microphone still on? Test? Test? Yep. Test, 1, 2, 3, test, test. This is only a test. Need to turn that screen timeout off. Auto lock 30 seconds, never.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, this is our wonderful setup. Do you mind if we put it within?
No, I'll just set it next to it. Is it on? Yeah.
I mean,
Shut off again? Okay. Okay, it went off.
Okay.
So student government's gonna see here. So when you come in,
Okay, we're ready to get started. Everyone can find a seat. Hey, we're so excited to have you guys here and our governor here and our superintendent and our assistant superintendents and our school board members. So I'm going to turn the time over to Isaac, your student body president.
Awesome. Thanks, Ms. Kent. All right. Governor Spencer J. Cox is a husband, father, farmer, and Utah's 18th governor. Governor Cox has a long track record of public service, serving as city council member, mayor, county commissioner, and state legislator before being appointed as Utah's lieutenant governor in 2013. He was sworn in as governor on January 4th, 2021. During his first term in office, Governor Cox has cut $1.1 billion in taxes, implemented landmark changes in water law, water conservation and infrastructure planning, locked in record funding for education and teachers, and secured funding for affordable housing. A longtime advocate for suicide prevention and mental health resources, he's become a national voice on protecting youth from the harms of social media. He also signed early education and workforce program funding and expanded opportunities for women, diverse communities, and those living in rural parts of the states. Please give a warm welcome to Governor Cox.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here with you. Thank you to my SBOs. Is this thing on? Can we turn on this? Are we good? There we go. There we go. All right, I'm gonna come out here for a second. I'm so excited to be back here in Box Elder. You are amazing. Thank you for the warm welcome. I want to also just pay tribute and welcome. We have some elected officials who are here with us, some county, city officials, school board members. Would you please stand up so we can give you a round of applause, our elected officials who are here? Thank you so much. Superintendent, thank you for having us as well. It's great to see Superintendent Carlson. I'm grateful for your incredible principal and your amazing student body officers. This is a great opportunity for me. We're traveling around the state, and I'm most excited to be able to spend some time with students. And I hope by the end of our time together, so I'm going to share a few thoughts with you, and then we're going to have some students come out, and they're going to ask me some questions. I'm going to ask them some questions, and I think these are the most comfortable chairs we've had yet. So they look amazing. And then I'm going to share a few more thoughts with you. But I want to start here. I'm hoping that by the end of today, I will have convinced you that there has never been a better time to be alive than right now, and there's never been a better place to live than right here in Utah. Now I know some of you probably doubt that, and I have kids. I have 3 kids in college. I've got a daughter who's 16. She's in high school. She's the same age as you, and I spent a lot of time here on these phones, right? And this is something we didn't have growing up. I see Joel Ferry, who's here with us. Joel and I get to work together. And I think Miles is out here somewhere. Miles, are you here? Where's Miles? Shout out to Miles. Miles, it's nice to see you. My guy, lacrosse. Miles, it's nice to see you. All right. I know Miles spends too much time on his phone. Joel's told me that. No, I'm just kidding. He hasn't told me that. But here's the thing. All of the bad stuff in the world is always right in front of you. And that concerns me. Because there are so many good things out there. And so I'm hoping that for the next few minutes that we will all put these away and that we'll be able to connect and have a conversation. But before I talk about about your future and some of the good things that are happening out there, I want to talk a little bit about my past. And I hope you'll put up with me for just a minute. You'll indulge me. I know what it's like. The last thing you want to hear is some old guy talk about what it used to be like when I was in high school. But here's the thing. When I was your age, I was worried about the future. I was worried about a lot of different things, right? Some of them were really big things, and some of them were mundane and kind of dumb things. I'll tell you one of the dumb things I was always worried about. I love music. Anybody love music? We have big music fans out there? Okay. You're my people. So when I was growing up, we listened to music on cassette tapes. Some of you may have seen those in like a museum or something, but they... You would be listening to your music. And by the way, if you wanted to hear another song, you like literally just had to fast forward and then stop and hit play until you found, where the next song started, if you got lucky. Now, the worst part though is you'd be listening and all of a sudden you would hear this terrible sound, like this garbled sound, And that meant that your tape recorder was eating the cassette tape. And the old people are nodding here. They remember. So you would hurry and hit stop, and you would yank it out, and there would be like this stream of just tape that came out with you. And you have to find a number 2 pencil and try to wind it back together and pray that it hadn't broken at some point. Now all of you are looking at me like, wow, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But here's my point in sharing this is like, we figured out a better way to do music. And now you have millions of songs. It's insane, right? Just at the touch of a button, you can listen to anything you've ever wanted to listen to. It was a problem. It was a dumb problem, but it was a problem, and we figured it out and we fixed it. I was worried about Russia. I guess we're still worried about Russia, but I grew up during the Cold War, so in the early 80s, we were all convinced. By the way, I grew up in a small town, a town that looks Brigham City, look huge, a town of Fairview. Think maybe more like Corinne, or even Corinne's bigger than Fairview now, but really small town, okay? And we were convinced that Russia was going to send a nuclear missile to hit the town of Fairview. I don't know why they were targeting Fairview, but we just assumed that they were. And we would practice by getting under our desks as if a desk would stop a nuclear warhead, right, if it came. But that's what we did because we didn't want to feel helpless, and we wanted to do our part. And our part in the Cold War was getting under our desks to practice. I was really worried about the hole in the ozone layer. Have any of you heard of the hole in the ozone layer? Okay, a few of you. Now, your science teachers will roll their eyes at me with this explanation, but let me just tell you, growing up, this is what I understood about the hole in the ozone layer. So there's this layer of ozone around the Earth that protects us from dangerous cosmic rays, like the sun's rays, the bad ones, that basically cause cancer. I mean, that was the worst part of it. So we had this hole in the ozone layer that was growing. And there was a study done that said that more than half of the people who lived in Utah, if this hole kept growing, would develop some life-altering form of cancer. That was, at the time, that was over 1 million people that were going to get cancer. It was very concerning. Like, that's something that I worried about as a teenager. Like, is this true? Am I going to get cancer? Half of us are, like half my family. That's crazy. But there's a reason you haven't heard, most of you haven't even heard of the hole in the ozone layer. And that reason is that we fixed it. And by the way, do you know what was causing the hole in the ozone layer? Yeah, hairspray. Thank you. Hairspray. I don't know if you've seen, by the way, it was aerosol cans, not necessarily hairspray, but hairspray was the largest contributor. You're right. I don't know if you've seen pictures of like your parents in the 80s, especially like ladies. There was so much hairspray, you guys. I mean, like, it was just hairspray everywhere. Ladies, you have no idea how good you have it now. By the way, guys too, I had hair back then. A lot of Aquanet was happening. And it was destroying our planet. And causing us cancer. So what did we do? Well, we all got together and we figured out a better way to do hairspray and less of it, which was also good, just for the looks. This is what we do as a society, right? We see problems, we come together and we fix those problems. And so yes, there are problems today, but you are not helpless. And we are not helpless to solve those problems. Let me share a couple examples. So we just finished a 45-day legislative session. I don't think we have any of our legislators here with us, but we have a couple former legislators here with us. Lee Perry, former legislator, Joel Ferry, former legislator. In 45 days, so second week in January to the third week in, or to the first week in March, the legislature passed 575 new laws. Okay, I bet most of you haven't heard of more than 4 or 5 of those. And you only heard about those because they were controversial, and the media loves controversy. Those are the things that they report on. They didn't report much on the 570 other laws that were near unanimous or unanimous, Republicans and Democrats working together to solve problems. Here's a few examples. One of the things that I'm worried about is our education system, making sure that we have the best education system in the country. One of the reasons that I say that you're living in the best time in history and the best place on earth is that we have the best education system right now in our state's history. You have more opportunities now than any generation in history, far more opportunities than I had growing up. You have better teachers now than we've ever had before. Right? Yes, give our teachers a round of applause. And and here's the thing. See, I want to make sure that we have the next generation of teachers that is even better. And I'm hoping that some of you are thinking about going into education and into teaching, but you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that if you can't afford to provide for your family, right? And so, again, what happened this legislative session? We passed over $700 million in new education funding, record education funding this year, and a record compensation increase for our teachers so that we can, again, make sure that we're providing for our teachers and make sure that the next generation is even better off than we are. That's so critical. We're working on that together. Another problem, how many of you are worried about, maybe a little less worried now than 6 months ago, but how many of you are worried about water and the Great Salt Lake, drought in the Great Salt Lake? Yeah, me too. Did you know that right now we are living through, again, it's weakened now, but hopefully for good, but did you know that we are living through the worst drought in the Western United States in over 1,200 years? Congratulations, you're doing it. You had no idea, right? Most of you didn't even know. And here's why you didn't know. One of the reasons you didn't know is because you're not going thirsty. And the reason is that people that came before us understood that there would be drought. And they built reservoirs, water storage systems, water delivery systems that have allowed us through the worst 20-year drought in 1,200 years to continue to produce food, continue to make sure that there is water for our survival. And again, like those that came before us, we are not helpless. Did you know that over the past 2 years, Utahns have gotten together and we have conserved close to 20 billion gallons of water? It's incredible. It's unprecedented. We did that. We saw that there was a drought. We saw that the Great Salt Lake was drying up, and we all said, we're going to use less water. And we did, to the tune of 20 billion gallons of water. Did you know that the legislature just has approved, and I signed into law, budgets of $1 billion over the past 2 years in new water conservation spending and water storage spending? Again, we are not helpless, okay? We don't have to fret about the future. We solve the future. How many of you are worried about the rising cost of housing? Yeah, me too. And let me tell you why. I mentioned I have 4 kids. I have three in college. I have one in high school. She's your age. And I want my kids to live here in the state of Utah. It's an awesome place. I want them to be able to live here. I want them to live near me. I don't want them to live with me for the rest of their lives. And I don't think you want to live with your parents for the rest of your lives either, right? And so what are we doing? We came together, we passed several laws that will help us increase the supply of housing, millions of dollars going to this effort, and as we increase the supply, we bring down the price of housing. We are going to do this over the next few years. You will see, I believe we can get ahead of this. I believe we can bring down the cost of housing. Last thing, before we bring some of your fellow students out, I know you're worried about the rising cost of everything. Inflation has been going up, the price of food, the price of gasoline, right? We've seen prices go up all across the country. One of the ways that we can help with that is for government to take less of your money so that you can use that money for other things. Now, before I became governor, the largest tax cut in our state's history was $225 million. My first year, we were able to pass a tax cut, $100 million. Second year, $200 million. And this year, over $800 million in tax cuts. That's your money. That's your family's money. Now, you can use that for things that are important to you. You know how to spend it better than I do. And those are some of the most significant problems that we're facing and ways that we are working on them. Now, I'm excited right now. This is my favorite part. Will you please join me in a warm round of applause to some of your fellow students who are going to come out and answer some questions. Hey, I think we actually have your names here. Seriously, this is, we actually have name tags here. We've never had that before. You guys are on top of things. Let me just say that. All right. Now, I'm very excited. They all have prepared a question for me. and then I have some questions for them as well. So let's just start down here. And I know everybody knows who you are, but some of my team doesn't. So if you could just share your names, and then let's go ahead and have a conversation.
All right, so my name is Milton Farr, and my question for you is, what made you decide to go into politics?
All right, thanks, Milton. I know some people grow up thinking, someday I want to be the governor of the state of Utah. I was not that person, all right? Let me be very clear. I wanted to play NBA basketball. Didn't go well for me. Let me just put it that way, all right? It turns out I was really small. I was a late bloomer, and I made up for my lack of height by also being really slow. It turns out that's not a great combination to play in the NBA. So I went a little different route. I went to Utah State University, go Aggies, and then I went to law school. Okay, so I'm an attorney by trade, but I moved back to the small town that I grew up in. Okay, really small town. I mentioned about 1,200 people, and I had a friend come to me who was on the city council at the time, and he said, "You know what? We have a vacancy on the city council." And we've talked about it. Somebody had moved, so we weren't. There wasn't an election. They had to appoint someone, and they said, "We've decided we want to appoint you to the city council." And I was flattered. I said, "Thank you. Why do you think I'd be good?" And he said, "Well, we can't get anybody else to do it." So that's how I got involved in politics. Oh, by the way, he also said, "And we have this big legal problem. And we can't afford an attorney, and we thought if you were on the city council, you would do free legal work for us." And so I said yes, and I did about $20,000 of free legal work, and I got paid $50 a month to be on the city council, and it was a great deal. Because I loved giving back. My parents and grandparents had taught us from a very early age, like many of your parents, that we all have a duty to give back and make our communities better. So all my cousins are volunteer firefighters and EMTs. They're great. I admire them. I wasn't real good with blood or fire, so this was my way to give back, and I really enjoyed it. After that, our mayor decided not to run again, and the city council member said, "Hey, you like this? We appreciate what you're doing. Would you consider running for mayor?" And so I got to be mayor after that, then a county commissioner. Then I got elected to the legislature, and I was there for 9 months when Governor Herbert asked me to be his lieutenant governor, which was a big surprise. That was the hard one for me because all those other positions were just part-time. I still had my real job, and I didn't really see myself as a politician. I didn't like politicians, and I didn't want to be one. And so that was a really hard decision. And I actually decided to tell the governor no, but it was my wife who kind of changed things for me. I mentioned I lived in Fairview, so it was 100 miles from my house to the Capitol. And we knew we weren't going to move. So my wife said, maybe the fact that we don't want to do this means we should do it because we need more people who don't like politics to do politics. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but it kind of made sense to me at the time. And so we decided to say yes. So for 7.5 years, I drove 200 miles every day round trip to serve as lieutenant governor. And it was a lot. It was like 60 to 65,000 miles a year, which is a lot. But it was an awesome experience because I get to meet people like you and do these types of things. And then Governor Herbert asked me to run for governor, and it was another hard decision, but we were very fortunate and lucky enough to become governor. So at every stage, I never expected the next thing or never really wanted the next thing or looked forward to it, but I'm grateful that I've gotten to do it. I feel like the luckiest person on earth. And I hope that there are some of you out there who are interested in politics, interested in what's happening in your city, your community, your school board, at the state and federal level. I hope that that we have a future governor right here in Box Elder County. Thank you for the question. Okay, next question.
So you already answered kind of a little bit of
tell me
my
your name.
question in part. Oh, sorry. I'm Dallin Davidson.
Thanks,
For
Al.
those who aren't aware.
You're great. Thanks.
So you already answered a little bit of my question, and it's what are your plans to counteract the unaffordability of housing for young adults in Utah? So if you could just go in a little more depth on what exactly you have put into motion, that'd be awesome. And then
Absolutely, yeah.
what advice you have for us as students to prepare to afford to live in Utah.
Yeah, so Dallin, here's the thing. I wasn't an economics major, but the only thing I learned about economics is I learned about supply and demand, right? So basic economic principle, if you have more demand than you have supply of something, the price will go up, right? And so there are only two ways to decrease price. You can decrease demand, and when it comes to housing, like we don't really want to do that piece. Actually, that's kind of what we're doing right now. I don't want to get too wonky, but the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates, right? And made it more expensive to buy a house. So if you're borrowing money at 7% instead of at 3%, right? It's harder to afford a house. So they kind of destroyed demand. And so the price of housing is going down, but only because they made money more expensive to borrow. That's not a good way to lower the price of housing. People still want houses, they just can't afford it, so the price is coming down. That's the wrong way to do it. That's right. The people want it, they just can't buy it. So that I don't like that kind of demand destruction. I think that's wrongheaded. So the only other way I know to decrease the price of housing is to increase supply, right? So we are working with cities and towns, trying to find that right balance to making sure that we can build more homes. And one of the areas that we're really focused on are starter homes. We have a lot of apartments being built across the state. If you drive into downtown Salt Lake City now, you see new apartment buildings just everywhere. And that's important. Again, we need more of that supply too, because rent is going up as well. So if again, we need more supply of apartments to bring rent down. But the one thing that we're not building much anymore, you see a lot of middle-class homes and upper-class homes. We're not building starter homes. So smaller homes on smaller lots. And that's one area where we're trying to really change that. And so we do have some new legislation that requires cities to look at density. So look at places within the city where you can have more density, so more houses in smaller spaces. Because that's the way most of it works. By the way, everybody's first house is small. I mean, that's a good thing, right? And you live in that house for a while, and you make more money, and you save more money, and then you can move into a bigger house, and then you resell that house to a new family who's starting their home. And that's the chain, and it works really well. But when nobody's building starter homes, then we have a gap in the system. So we just approved $40 million in new money for new homeowners, okay? So if you're buying your first home, so these are some of the parameters. You have to be buying your very first home. That's rule number one. You can get up to $20,000 to help with a down payment, right? So that helps you get in, helps you bring down or you can pay down the mortgage interest rate. So instead of getting 7%, you can buy it down and maybe get a 4% loan if you want to do that. But here's the key, though. It has to be a brand new home. So what we're trying to do is incentivize builders to start building these new homes, because now there will be demand with people, young families, who have now $20,000 that they can go buy their first home with and get a loan. So if I'm a builder, I'm like, okay, I want to build for these guys. So I'm going to start building smaller homes, and because that's the only place they can use it. So that's a long answer, but I wanted to show just some of the detail that you asked for about how we're trying to attack this from a supply side. Now, my advice to all of you is this. It's study hard, work hard, and you will have a successful future, right? The upside of what we're seeing with inflation for all of you is that jobs are paying more now than ever before, and we have more jobs available right now than at any time in our state's history. We have the #1 economy in the country. That's not me telling you this. These are independent organizations that have verified that Utah is the #1 economy and has been for the last 10 years, which is remarkable. My daughter just got a summer job at a camp, and even though minimum wage in Utah is like $7.50 or whatever it is, nobody's paying minimum wage. Like, she's making $15 an hour. And so again, if you save, start saving that money from an early age, you will all be able to afford a home here. I feel very confident of that. Great question. Thank you. Okay, next question, Pete.
All right, my name's Peyton Hubbard, and my question is there an issue that you wish was addressed early while kids were still in school so that it wouldn't be a problem later?
Oh yeah, lots of issues. I keep saying your generation is going to solve all of the problems that we are creating for you. So no pressure. Like, we believe in you. But here's the thing. I will say the one problem that we're really focused on now And it's affecting adults and students. Well, let me ask you this. How many of you believe that social media has negatively impacted your generation? By the raise of hands. Okay. How many of you think it has had no impact negatively on your generation? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. It's pretty unanimous. By the way, I think it's had a negative impact on my generation too, right? But it's certainly been more pronounced with your generation. And what we're learning about social media is that the mental health impacts are severe. We've seen just skyrocketing cases of anxiety and depression and self-harm with the younger generation that we've never seen before. That's the one area where I wish we could figure this out, and we're working on it. We passed 2 major bills to work on this, to hold social media companies accountable, to make it so they can't use their addictive algorithms on young people, which they're doing, to make it so so that parents have more ability to work with all of you to decide how often you're going to use it. It will turn off at night at 10:30 starting next year, and turn back on at 6:30 in the morning, unless your parents override that, which they can. If your parents decide you want to use social media at any time, you can do that. But we're giving families those options again. I think it's really important. I know I've seen it with my daughters. My daughter's the only one of her friends that doesn't have social media, but with her friends where they're like, I'm not going to look at it tonight. Well, maybe just once. I'm just going to get on for just a minute, check out TikTok, and all of a sudden it's 4 a.m. and they've just been scrolling, right, all night. And I know that happens, and now they're tired. Learning goes down, and all of these other things, anxiety and depression, go up. So that's one area where I wish we could learn that. To spend more time face-to-face is really important. All of the research shows that we need connection, real connection, not the fake connection on our phones. We need to hang out more. We need to, when I was a kid, we would leave in the morning and not come back until night. Parents didn't know where we were. Probably not the best thing, but it's fine. Yes, we got into trouble, but that's also how we learn, right? Unsupervised play is really important. So I hope all of you will spend a little less time on your phones and more time face-to-face. Great question, Peyton. Thank you. All right, Judah?
Hi, I'm Judah Richardson. My question for you is, when the Utah legislature passed the student eligibility in interscholastic activities bill that you vetoed,
Yeah.
and they overrode about trans students,
Yeah.
trans athlete students in sports, how did it feel to be overridden, kind of almost ignored?
Yeah, sure. So this was a really controversial topic, and I'm glad you brought it up because I think it's really important. First of all, let me just say that the legislature and the executive branch, this balance of power is really important, and that's how it's supposed to work. And so I had no problem with them overriding the veto because that's how the system is supposed to work, right? They heard from their constituents and decided to override it. What's really interesting, though, about that bill, there's a lot of misperception about why I vetoed it, and also a lot of misperception about what happened after I vetoed it. And so if I could just share a little bit about that. So I think most of us are concerned, including me. So I wrote a 5-page letter about why I vetoed it. Now, the odds of people reading a 5-page letter in today's society.
I actually read it.
Oh, did you? Thank you for
preparation for the
reading it.
question.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You're one of the few that read it. Usually if it doesn't fit in a 280 character tweet, like nobody's going to pay attention to it at all. And so I started in there by saying, like, some of the things that we've seen deeply concern me, and we'd seen it with a transgender swimmer at Penn, NCAA swimmer, who was winning and setting records, and I actually disagreed vehemently with that. I didn't think that was fair. Conversely, one of the major problems I had with the bill was that the bill was changed drastically. We were all working on this together. And then at the very last minute, on the last night of the session, an entirely new bill, this ban, was introduced. And there was no public hearing, there was no public input whatsoever, and that really concerns me. I think process matters, and people need an opportunity to be heard. Even if that's where we ended up, the process matters. And so that really concerned me. I had a problem with that. The other problem I had is that we knew there would be a lawsuit, and it was going to bankrupt the High School Athletic Association, which had already been through a big lawsuit. They'd spent all the reserves, and that would have put in danger all sports, every sport in the state. if they were bankrupted by this lawsuit. And two more things. There was a lawsuit. Idaho had already done this 2 years before us, and there was a lawsuit filed, and the judge had put a stay on that new law, which meant even though they passed a ban, it's still legal for transgender athletes to participate in sports 2 years later because that litigation was still ongoing. And I knew that exact thing would happen here. So even though these legislators wanted a ban, they weren't going to get the ban. Because the judge was going to do what the judge in Idaho did. And by the way, that's exactly what happened. I was right on that front. I was also right. So I had a whole bunch of legislators say, hey, we're going to override your veto, but we think you're right. And I'm like, okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to override your veto, and then will you call a special session, and we'll pass a new bill. that protects the High School Athletic Association and also put into place what we were working on, which was a commission. And because we knew that there were legal challenges around the ban, we would put in place this commission. And what would happen is if there were any trans athletes that wanted to participate, they would actually have to go to the commission. And the commission would be able to make a decision whether they would have a competitive advantage or not. And if they have a competitive advantage, then they would not be allowed to participate, so that we protect women's sports, which is really important. I think it's absolutely critical, and I support that wholeheartedly. We only had one trans athlete, one transgender female, so one biological male that was participating in female sports, and it was a swimmer at a school, and there were no issues at all. And so again, it's a really complicated issue, but it's really easy to take a side and say, oh, well, the legislature hates trans people. Or conversely, the governor hates women in women's sports, which isn't true at all. And so where we ended up, I think, is in the right place. The ban is not in place right now. But the commission is, which was the thing that we were all working on. And there's only been one student who's attempted to go through the commission, and I don't think they've even gone through that process yet. So it's this hair on fire moment, right? Dividing our state. What's wrong with the governor? What's wrong with the legislature? Why do we all hate each other? And it turns out that we all kind of agree, and it's not happening right now. So maybe there are better ways to work through this than a bill on the last night of the session that would have caused some big problems. So I know that's a really long answer, but I hope, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, I hope we can all take time to read a 5-page letter, that we're willing to have that kind of discussion, because I think it really changes things. Everyone I've talked to who actually read my letter, even if they disagreed with me, said, oh, okay, I understand where you're coming from now. And so once the judges have decided, then we can go forward with the ban or not, depending on what the judiciary determines. So thanks for asking the question. I really appreciate it. All right, last question.
All right. I'm Bryson Singleton. And Governor, in light of the recent school shooting threats made to schools across the nation, including Box Elder, I was wondering, how do you propose to increase the safety of our schools, and how do you propose to fund those?
Yeah, thank you. Great question, and one that we're really concerned about. Can I just say about those hoax, just how awful they were? We found out, so they were coming from Florida, and, well, at least they were being routed through Florida, probably coming from overseas somewhere. So we live in a world now where someone on the other corner of the world can disrupt our education, which is just awful. And I hate that there are people like that out there. But most importantly, we want to keep our students safe. And so, again, I want to give credit to the legislature for working on a bill, something that we participated in this year, that gave us additional resources that we've never had before. So we created a new position, a state-level position under the Department of Public Safety that is specifically working on school safety. They will be coordinating with every school in the state. Every school has to come up with their own plan. Every school has a plan. We also have a commission in place that will work on best practices, so making sure that the plan that you have in place in your school is the right plan, implementing those best practices. We also passed $75 million in new funding for schools to help implement those plans. So including new safety features in schools, as well as like new resource officers, additional resource officers in the schools to help keep you safe, to help protect our students. There were several other bills that were passed that really focus on understanding threats and doing threat assessments when there is a threat that comes forward. Many of these terrible shootings and tragedies have taken place. There were signs where they should have known, where law enforcement knew or should have known, but that wasn't communicated to the school, or the school knew and didn't communicate it to law enforcement. And so we're trying to fix those pieces as well, so there's better communication. The last thing I will say is, hopefully all of you have the Safe Utah app, the Safe UT app on your phone. That Safe UT app was created to help with mental health issues, and it's been wildly successful. If any of you are struggling, you can push a button and immediately be in contact with a mental health professional. There is a side benefit to that wasn't intended but was built in as a feature. The ability for anyone that hears something that a fellow student is planning or thinking about or threatening, being able to push a button and immediately and anonymously be in contact with law enforcement to report that. We get those tips, and we have actually prevented some pretty serious tragedies from happening here because of that. And so I hope you all have that, and I hope you'll utilize it. Great question. Okay, I've talked too much. You ready for some questions now? Okay, all right, here we go. They have no idea what I'm asking, but first one's really easy. Best part of school, worst part of school?
All right. Best part of school for me personally, I love the learning parts. I love gaining new information, just learning as much as I can about as much things as possible.
Okay.
And really the worst part, I really wouldn't say there is a worst part. I think there's so many positive things about school. If you look for the
I like your optimism.
You're going to find some positive.
Okay. How about getting up too early, lots of stress, anything like that? Anything?
Definitely way too much stress.
Okay.
Definitely the worst part.
I hear that all the time from my daughter. Just a lot of stress, right? A lot of expectations, a lot to do. Okay. Judah. Same question. Yeah, all of you get the same question.
Okay, so the best part of school is the community you can create by being yourself and having these people around you.
Love that.
The worst part is AP test day and the weeks leading up to it.
A lot of people feel that. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, Peyton.
All right, so I love the social aspect of school, coming and being able to like meet new people or just like talk with your friends, kind of catch up. And then the worst part is trying to balance like extracurricular activities with the amount of schoolwork I have. It kind of just causes stress, like Bryson said, and it's just kind of a little overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, you have a lot on your plate. I can see that. All right, Dallin?
I'd say like 95% of school, I'm in a pretty broad spectrum of things, and I really like the learning aspect. I don't know, I'm as hardcore nerd as you could get, but I also do sports and choir and student government, and I don't know. You can find a great social environment and a great educational environment in the same place, which is fun.
Awesome.
The worst part is similar to Peyton, just balancing it all.
Yeah.
When you try and do everything at the same time, you'll end up screwing up things that you should have been good at that you weren't, or putting focus on things you shouldn't have when there were other things you should have put more focus on. But
Okay, so finding that balance and that priority. Yeah,
but
love
it's
it.
doable.
Okay.
And it's still enjoyable.
Okay, great. No.
All right, so I would say my favorite part of school is just, the social part of it. I love Box Elder and the people here at Box Elder, teachers and students.
Let's hear it for our teachers.
I would say my least favorite part of it is I would agree with Dallin and Peyton, just that there's so much going on and I'm involved with so many things. That's kind of hard to balance.
That's awesome. I mean, again, great to have all those opportunities, but it can be a challenge. Okay, next question for all of you. It's a two-part question, and you can choose to answer either part or both if you want. Something that worries you about the future, okay? Something that worries you about your future as you're looking forward, and or something that you wish my generation, the adults in the room, your parents, teachers, something you wish we knew about your generation, something you wish we understood better about you guys. So something you're worried about or something you wish we understood better.
All right, so I would say probably the number one thing that I'm worried about is just being able to juggle just all the responsibilities that I'm going to have as I move on into adult life. So.
Okay, yeah, you're looking forward and it's a little daunting. Okay, all right.
I think as for, the biggest teenager thing of all time is just trying to figure out what you want to do with your future. Like, it's such a turning point, especially junior and senior year of high school, where you're going from being a person who's had a pretty strict structure, even though you can choose some classes, it's still you set this, your school 7 hours a day, you live here, you do this, to where am I going to live? What school do I want to go to? What major do I want to go into? What do I want to put my time into? Because I don't know, you get to choose your path. And I personally have no idea where I want to go with that path. So trying to just figure out where I want to go and what I want to do is pretty big stress.
Yeah, I can see that. Thank you. You. Okay, Peyton.
All right, so my biggest worry is how do I provide for like myself or like my family if I get one? Because I'm still like debating. I'm like Dallin, I don't know what I want to do. I have many ideas and I toss and turn it between them. So it's hard to. I'm worried about like finding which one will be the best for me.
Okay, yeah, and you want to get it right? And that can be paralyzing sometimes. All right, thank you. Okay, Judah?
I like that second question.
Yeah, give me some advice.
So with the older generation it may seem very similar to what you grew up as, maybe even be the same school if you stayed in the same town. But I think adults should kind of focus on the nuance of things that are happening now, like more current events, maybe outside of politics, right? So rather than it is a fact that older people are the ones who vote more.
Yeah.
But I think they usually vote in their interests, like most people do. But I think it'd be better to look towards the future. Like, hey, this might be perfect for me, but I think for my kids, I think this will be a great, legislature. Something to pass. So just the little nuances of our
thinking more
time,
to the future,
right? Yeah, and trying to understand us better through that type of stuff.
Excellent. Thank you. It's great advice.
One of the biggest concerns I have for my future, similar to Peyton, Dallin, and Milton, is just getting my priorities set for adult life. I mean, I'm already struggling with priorities right now. Being a teenager, being involved in a lot of different activities, and it's like going into adulthood, I know I'll have to get my priorities straight, and it's a big concern for me, like the work-family balance, education, job opportunities, and I just think that's a big concern for me.
Okay, thank you. So it's interesting to hear this. Again, as I've said before, there have never been more opportunities for young people than ever before. But the fact that there are so many opportunities can feel a little daunting, right? A little overwhelming, maybe a little paralyzing. Great feedback. Okay, last question. And by the way, this is a question for all of you. I want you to think about this one. All right. I want you to describe. So in one word, you only get one word. Okay. In one word, I got asked this question a couple months ago, and I'm interested to hear what your words are. In one word, I want you to describe our country right now. Okay. Now, it can be a positive word. It can be a negative word. Not what you want our country to be. Not what our country used to be. Imagine I just showed up from Europe and I said, hey, how would you describe the United States of America right now in one word? What word would you choose?
Well, Governor, that's a tough question.
And if somebody has one and you need to think for a second, that's okay. And by the way, if someone steals your word, you can still use it. You don't have to come up with different words.
I think my one word to describe this nation would be unorganized.
Unorganized. That's a great word. Yeah. Okay.
Transitional. Okay.
Willing.
Excellent.
Confused?
Confused. Yeah. No, unorganized and confused. Chaotic is one I've heard. Very, very similar. Yeah.
I'd say cheap.
Okay. Amazing answers. You guys have been great. I'm going to let you head off stage, and let's give them a round of applause. Thanks, you guys. Good job. They were amazing. That was so much fun. All right, now I hope you all thought of your words, because I'm going to share with you. By the way, this was a research study that was done across the country. Thousands and thousands of people were asked to share their thoughts in one word on how they would describe our country. Let me ask, first of all, how many of you thought of a negative word? Okay. How many of you thought of a positive word? Okay. By the way, that's about right. Every school I've been to, and by the way, nationally, same thing. It's about 10 negatives to every one positive, and that's about what I saw out here. So let me share with you the number one word. And by the way, this was the word I came up with when I was asked. The number one word was divided. How many of you came up with divided? Yeah, a bunch of divideds out there. That was the number one. Chaotic, which is, we heard a version of chaotic, right? Unorganized. Intolerant, rigged, and weak were the most common Most common words. Now, here's another one. Here's another one. Think about this for a minute. Not just describe our country, but how do you feel about our country, which is a little different question. The number one cited feeling towards our country right now, number one is frustrated. Number two is disappointed, exhausted, disgusted, and angry were the top five. Now, something's changed over the past 4 years. So 4 years ago, this question was asked. If you're a Republican, do you think that Republicans should work with Democrats to solve problems? And if you're a Democrat, do you think that Democrats should work with Republicans to solve problems? 4 years ago when that question was asked, 60% of Americans thought we should work with each other. 4 years later, now that's dropped to 49%. Even worse, 7 out of 10, so 70% of Americans believe that the other side, the other party, they described as, perceived as brainwashed, hateful, and arrogant, okay? Now, when I graduated from high school in the 90s, 20% of Republicans and 17% of Democrats had a very unfavorable view of the other party. Okay, so 20 and 17 had a very unfavorable view of the other party. Today, 60 and 54% have a very unfavorable view of the other party. Those numbers have skyrocketed. Now, I don't want to end on a negative note, all right? Let me end on a positive note. Here's the good news. The good news is that in Utah, we are not as divided as the rest of the nation, but we are headed that way, okay? Better news. 70% of Americans, according to a study done by Time Magazine, 70% of Americans don't like how divided we are, right? And this is where I desperately need your help, okay? If I could ask your generation to do anything to help us, it would be this. We need to learn how to disagree better. We need to remember how to disagree without hating each other, how to build people up without tearing people down. Right? Now, here's what I'm not asking. I am not asking for all of us to agree on everything. I'm not saying we all have to just agree and link arms and be the same in everything. That is actually not good. It's not healthy. Our nation was founded on profound disagreement. It's okay to disagree. Conflict doesn't have to be bad. There is such a thing as healthy conflict. Right? Healthy conflict is when we learn how to disagree better. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever changed your mind when somebody attacked you? Somebody said, you're an idiot, you're stupid, I can't believe it. Why would you believe that? Does that ever change your mind? It doesn't. In fact, the exact opposite happens, right? When we feel attacked, what do? We get defensive, and then we go into attack mode. And we get even hardened in whatever it is that we're disagreeing on. If we truly want to make this world and our country a better place and really restore our country to the greatness of its past, we have to learn how to disagree without hating each other. And we do that by listening. We do that by listening to understand. And something changes. I just did a debate last night at Utah State University, a remarkable debate. We were debating, we had a group of about 70 students, and we were debating whether or not we should forgive college debt, college loans, right? Okay, whether we should, educational debt. And you would think, again, this is a very controversial topic on a college campus, and it is. And yet we had the most remarkable, respectful debate I've ever seen. A group called Braver Angels puts it on, and they actually teach young people how to disagree better. Now, I have to be reminded of this all of the time. I fall short all of the time. I talk about this all of the time, and then sometimes I don't live up to those ideals. My lieutenant governor, I hope you get a chance to meet her. Her name is Deidre Henderson. She's amazing. She has a rule that she tries to live by and that I try to live by. She says, if it feels good, don't post it. If it feels good, don't say it, right? And we've all been there where we want to we're being attacked and we want to fight back. We want to punch back. We want to just tear the other person down and win the argument, right? And I just this past weekend, somebody came, attacked me. I went into attack mode, and I need to be better. Usually I'm better, but this time I wasn't. And this is where I think you can really help, right? Social media is designed to tear us apart. That's the whole point of it, right? And so it's harder there. We post things that we would never say face to face, right? But we can do this. We can be better. You see, here's the thing, and I want to end here. We live in the greatest nation in the history of the earth, right? Because, and let me make the case just briefly if I can. We were a nation that was founded on an idea, and it was a radical idea. This radical idea was this, and it's found in the Declaration of Independence mostly. This idea that no other country on earth understood, that we all are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of, okay, you guys know this, right? Life, liberty, now think about that. These rights do not come from government. That was the radical idea, right? Every other government on earth thought that they held the power, that they had the rights, and that they decided what their subjects or what their citizens, what rights they got. No. That's wrong. That's backwards. See, we understood that those rights, they're ours, and they come not from government, they come from on high, they come from our Creator. And we, the people, hold that power, not government. And government officials have to come ask us to use that power every 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, depending on what office you hold. That is profound. But it only works when we understand that true freedom is respect and learning how to disagree better. Okay? Now, I want to say how proud I am of you guys. I am so excited for our future because I'm excited for your future. I believe in you. I believe that what you have right here in Brigham City, right here in Box Elder County, is the thing that is missing from the rest of the nation. Did you know that Utah leads the nation in volunteerism? Did you know that we lead the nation in charitable giving? Like, we care about each other, and that's what makes us special and unique. And that's what will save our country. You are going to save our country, and I can't wait to see what you accomplish. I leave you by saying again, we live at the best time in the history of the world, and we live in the greatest place on earth. Thank you for letting me come. God bless you. Keep up the good work.
We want to give Governor Cox a warm welcome for visiting us at Box Elder High School. We are one of the oldest high schools in the state of Utah, and we have the bee for our mascot, which is the best mascot ever. We're going to end by singing our school song. So I'm going to have student government and some of our cheerleaders come up to help, and let's let him hear how the bees sing the school song.
All right, will everybody stand up, please?
Okay, if you guys want to get pictures, if you'll line up against this wall over here, and then you can come up here and get pictures, and then we'll just have you exit out that way.
Where's
I didn't, but.
Alexa grabbed her bags. Will you take a picture of me with your camera and then will you take a picture of me with your camera and then DM me and send it to me?
Hey. Who said that?
Yeah.
I used to work with it, but it's been. It's been a long time. But you're done with it. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I was going to get it. I don't know. Where? I'm the sophomore class. Yeah. I think I have put myself up, which made it even cooler. Look here, the public person and it's in my mind, I'm like, no, I can't be. It's like unstable and stressed. Like, oh, you don't want to be that person. Like, I feel wrong. I just like want to make a difference.
There's one more group. You want to wait for a photo while he does it?